All right, welcome to episode 1 of the TrueYou Unfiltered podcast. I am your host, Kyle Pursley, where our podcast is a guide to navigating life's challenges and achieving a holistic well-being. We offer insights of overcoming obstacles in emotions, spiritual, financial, and physical aspects. We simplify the process of skill development, helping you reach your goals. Additionally, we provide practical advice on balancing family life while pursuing the growth in business, fitness, and mental well-being. So join us for a valuable tips to enhance various facets of your life's journey with our guest, Chris Newman, a colleague of mine in the marketing space and now a great friend who has been crushing it in the coaching and marketing industry. He's newly married and is a freaking beast at golf. And let's get into it. I wanted to go ahead and call this episode "Breaking Generational Beliefs."
Thanks,
And
man.
yeah,
Excited.
man. So welcome. I'm super pumped to have you here, man. I really wanted to call it "Breaking Generational Beliefs" because I feel like you have a pretty cool story yourself, man. Just from even getting into, before even getting into entrepreneurship, but then as we've connected in the coaching and marketing space, there's a lot of cool things that you shared in the past, man. So I guess like just kind of going from here, can you share a little bit about your background and your journey from, becoming a freaking beast in business and in golf, bro? Either way, we can go from there.
Yeah, we'll keep it family and business. I appreciate the shout out for golf, but that's a work in progress as always. No, my journey is obviously unique to me. For me, growing up, my parents were very young when they had me, and they got divorced at a very young age. My mom struggles with mental illness still to this day. So that was a really prominent in my childhood and young adult life. Um, it created a lot of challenges, not her specifically, but the dynamic between my parents. And then, thankfully, I had two wonderful grandparents, two very different types of grandparents,
Okay.
but two that really showed me where I wanted to head in life. My first one, my papa, he owned a restaurant. He was a very successful entrepreneur, and he had a restaurant our whole lives. And so I always saw the way he went about his business. The I saw the benefit of owning a business. Right, he had a beautiful home. We had a swimming pool. So many fond memories. And that financial freedom really stuck with me. And then I had my grandma, who's my mom's mom. She was really, she was really, she always like supported me. She helped us financially, during our childhood at times. She was the grandparent that went to every sporting event. I remember hockey tournaments that she would take me. We'd carpool, and me and my grandma would stay at a hotel, and she'd lug my hockey stuff to tournaments. So many fond memories. But the point I'm getting at is the turning point for me was I left and I went to an all boys Jesuit high school, and that's where things unlocked for me. And they unlocked because I was finally at the first time in my life realizing that I was at a disadvantage. Disadvantage, truly,
Really?
right?
Okay. Okay.
These kids were rolling up in their moms and dads Mercedes and Jaguars, and I was taking the short yellow school bus to school. And that lit a fire under me because it finally made me realize that people are handed different cards, right? And that's just, you have no control over that, right? What cards you're dealt. But what you do have control over is the way you show up, and the fact that I had the same opportunity they did once we walked into school every day, made me really motivated, really motivated, and that's when kind of the spark came. And then once I got out of high school, I went to college, went for business, started working for my dad's construction, kitchen bathroom modeling company, and I saw a little glimpse of what I wanted to do, but also what I definitely didn't want to do, which was putting in kitchens and baths. I'm not a handyman. My father-in-law jokes with me constantly because I can, you'll see crooked pictures in my house all the time, and my wife leaves them there because it's to commemorate my effort. But I knew handyman and that type of stuff wasn't my gig, so that's when I jumped into online digital marketing, and started learning from Douglas James, and the rest is history, man. The rest is history. But that's kind of the snapshot of
Yeah.
what got me to where I am today.
No, I love that because like, um, my background was like playing soccer, right? And something that kind of like what we kind of had in alignment was is I played a lot of soccer with, I would say, the more well off kids on the other side of town, so to speak. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt that even because of that, seeing different perspectives of different people, right? I built, believe it or not, bro, like a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I always had
Hmm.
something to kind of prove. And do you kind of did you feel like you had something kind of like that going on while you were, at that new school and you're seeing, a
Yeah,
different possibilities of different people's lifestyles. Like
for
anything is,
sure. I
you
think
know?
I think there's two sides of the coin, right? There's having a chip on your shoulder, being relentless, the grinder mentality. It brings the best out of people, right? Yeah, the back against the wall mentality, right? Like that kind of all is encompassing, right? That chip on your shoulder drives me still to this day, to accomplish things that I would laugh at 3-4 years ago, that I'm
Yeah.
that I'm getting in the rooms and having conversations with. But on the flip side, I think there's a delicate balance of being loving, compassionate for other people, seeing how other people, and their way of life it shaped them, and just being receptive, right? And being in a place where there's no judgment. And early on in my life, there definitely was that. I was judging, I was being judged, right? I think that when it kind of maturity took place, right? I'm more mature than I was obviously 12, 13 years ago. But now, regardless of where people come from, I still show up in my, back against the wall mentality, chip on my shoulder, but I'm also in a more loving place where, regardless of where people are in their season of life, I respect it, I honor it, and I try to show up and be as respectful of that as possible. And I think that's a delicate balance that is really important.
So kind of like with that being said on like the transition, right, of I would say almost emotional intelligence, right? I
Mm.
think that kind of bridges almost the gap with you even potentially even diving into business coaching, marketing. Could you kind of dive into like what inspired you to kind of go into that specific route with all of that stuff being said? Because I'm kind of seeing a cool picture in my head, but I would love to kind of hear it from you, man.
So, what ultimately got me into the business coaching space? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, but like with that being said, like with business and coaching, right? You have also we talked about the chip on your shoulder, but you've also talked about how that has matured and
Oh,
the
I see.
back
I
against
got
the
you.
wall
Okay.
mentality, right? So
Yeah.
like what made you against the back, I guess you could put your back behind the wall type of deal, but then I think there was some type of inspiration in between that to make you start molding into, let's say, entrepreneurship, business, and things of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
nature.
That's a good question. It's a loaded question,
It
for
is,
sure.
yes. It's a couple in
Um,
one.
but I appreciate the question nonetheless. For me, you know, I've always really cared about helping other people. I don't know if it came from when I was a child, and I was always thinking about how my mom was doing, and it just brought that part out of me. But I can't shake it, and I have learned to appreciate that part of me, that I just like to help people. I want to see the best versions of other people, and I'll go to great lengths to do that. To my sacrifice, I've done it repeatedly, especially over the past couple of years, sacrificing my gain for someone else. And that's not to pat myself on the back, but what I'm trying to express is like I care about others more than I care about myself, and sometimes that comes back and it gets me. But more times than not, I can go to sleep at the end of the night knowing that I did everything I could to help someone else. And so then once I got into business and I started to have success, people wanted to know how I was doing it. So inadvertently, I shared my experiences, and that's the only thing I shared. I didn't direct them to take action or do anything. I just shared my experiences, like I am with you right now. And what I found was when people started to have success in their own, it was like Christmas morning for me. Like I would give up all of my success to see someone else have the same level of success, truly. And that takes a lot of a lot in me to do that. But I've learned from a selfish standpoint, that's what drives me. So I don't know if it's an ego thing. I don't know what it is, but for me, when I help other people win, nothing else matters. Okay. And so the opportunity presented itself when I started to have success in my digital marketing agency, and I was interviewed by DJ, right? And he, at the time, we had no other programs but the IMA course that
Yes,
we
dude.
took, right?
The
So
OG.
yeah,
Yes.
the IMA Academy, Industry Marketing Academy. So when we did that interview, I said, listen, man, marketing is okay. It's my vehicle. I can make good money. I can support my family. I can do some of the things I want to do, but I want to make a bigger impact. And I said that back in 2019, end of 2019. I had this conversation with him, and I said, I want to coach other people on how to do the same thing. He goes, funny enough, I've been thinking about starting another tier in our coaching program. Would you want to be a part of it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so I didn't ask him about money. I didn't ask him about anything. I just said, sure, I'll do it, and I'll figure it out later. And that was the greatest blessing for me, man. It's opened up so many doors, but I've been able to have my hands in thousands of people's businesses and lives and try to make an impact. And for me, man, I can sleep easy at night knowing that I can do that every day, and I just let the chips fall from there.
I like that because you're not focusing on that perfection that we've been taught, right? That like the general public gets into is that general this has to be absolutely perfect. And guys, we referenced a program that we both actually attended. It was a marketing course just to kind of give the listeners a little bit of background. And we got into the Douglas James community. And it's hilarious because we went through this course of learning different skill sets, sales, marketing, automations, all these things to help local businesses generate leads. And all we had was one call a week with this guy, and we were able to make something happen out of it. So just to kind of give you all some
Yeah.
background on what that actually is. And I know something that's really, really, really close to your heart is proximity. You love talking about that area, and I think
Yeah.
that's from it like it's like almost like a chain reaction, man. Like you went to Doug, you were like good enough to ask for it. Maybe it's that little chip on your shoulder wanting to help more people, right? But
Yeah.
then that's how we got introduced, ironically. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's crazy how one thing can kind of build off of one another. Now you're doing amazing things in the business and marketing coaching space. So that's going to be a solid thing. I think something that's pretty interesting to kind of see as well as you evolving as a leader too. Now you're married, right? And
Yep.
there may have been some different challenges along the way. And with being married, but also wanting to help people, and as you said earlier, it kind of bites you in the butt sometimes. Like,
Sure.
what would you consider that would those be some challenges you would typically face, or what type of challenges do you typically see, either on a week to week or a day to day basis that you are working through, so that way you
Yeah.
make time for her and still
Yeah.
crush it? Like, what's that kind of look
Yeah.
like? We had a couple of
Yeah,
conversations.
man. Listen, I've only been married, a little over a year, right? And so I'm
Yeah,
no expert.
new bird.
I'm no
Yep,
expert,
yep,
bro. And
yeah.
if you ask my wife, she would agree with you. I'm definitely not an expert at marriage. Um, I think when it comes to marriage, uh, the biggest thing is communication. And you can say, like, there's all these old folk tales of, this is the key to marriage, right? You gotta go on 2 dates.
Yes.
You gotta go on 2 dates a week. You gotta go on a 3-day trip somewhere. You gotta share each other's money. You gotta have sex certain times a week. There's all these myths.
You can be right or you can be happy. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
right. Yeah. It's like, oh, happy wife, happy life. Like, I think the biggest thing, man, is communication. Now, I think a big part of my marriage, specifically as it relates to my business and what I'm about, is we have a very unique dynamic. We are very open with one another in terms of our objectives, but she allows me to be me, and she allows me to do the things that I'm passionate about doing, and I leave her the space to do the things that make her happy. We don't need to be on top of each other all the time. Like we can have separate lives and still come together in a beautiful way, in a respectful way, in a loving way. That curates a positive environment for our marriage to exist. But communication is a big part of that. You have to be in sync with where you're headed, where they're headed. And then I think the last component I'll say is accountability. You have to be accountable to yourself, and you have to be accountable to your partner. And the accountability is when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. When you say you're going to show up for that person, you got to show up even when you don't want to. When she or he is pissing you off and you just want to walk into the room and jump on a meeting instead of talking about it, that's the stuff that matters. And I have found I'm not an expert at it. I definitely haven't won every single time here. But I think more times than not, I am able to take a step back and realize that, listen, this is the person I married, and I need to put just as much work into that as I do my business or my health or fitness, whatever the case may be. People always talk about work-life balance. I don't think it's work-life balance. It's all life. It's all life. And you have to find your how you can navigate it all, right? I know you and I had a conversation last weekend about, like, your schedule and your wife's schedule and stuff like that. Like, you just got to find ways to make the time, and not just make time for the sake of making time, but finding time where you can have intimate time, that you're not thinking about work, you're not responding to a bunch of Slack messages and emails, you're present. Right, whether that's, hey, let's just run over to the coffee shop. Hey, let's go for a walk around the block. Hey, let's take the dogs for a walk. Let's, whatever. And being present, and that's the struggle that I've had, because I have a hard time shutting my mind off, especially late at night,
oh, dude.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I am my optimal time to get work done is in the evening after dinner. So from roughly 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night is my peak time. That's where I am usually at my sharpest, and that's when I do a lot of my creative work, right? So that's challenging, right? That's definitely challenging. So when I'm done with that, I have to go be able to shut this off and be present with her, and that's been something I'm trying to navigate. But I wanted to talk about this real quick, and I want to
Yeah.
take this away from marriage, but just talk
Yeah.
about relationships for a moment, because entrepreneurship is a lonely game. It's a lonely game. You have a lot of time on your hands, just you and your computer, or you and your thoughts, and you need to. And when you're an entrepreneur, specifically someone that hides behind a computer all day, you crave interaction in whatever capacity that may look like, right? Um, and one of the struggles that I had early on in business was the fact that I saw these networks of people that were where I wanted to be, right? There was
Oh,
these
yes.
bigger networking circles that I wanted to ascend into. But what I realized was every time I did that and I saw what's possible, I deviated from the main thing, which is what got me there in the first place. And so now I've been able to keep the main thing and know who I am. And this is an important note here, Kyle, because I want you to elaborate on this too. if you know who you are at the end of the day, if you are grounded in your principles, right? Grounded in your principles,
Right.
you will attract the people that are meant to be in your circle just by being you. When you don't force it and you're not like, hey, I need to go to this networking event. Hey, I have to talk to this person. You don't have to do any of it. Just be present, show up in your most authentic self, and there will be people that show up at the appropriate time in your life. And in the meantime, because you take that approach, now you can consistently focus on the main thing and not deviate based on, this person I just talked to, he's big in the crypto space. He sent me this link. Let me check it out. That serves nothing to you right now, right? Because think about this, all the work you put in for your marketing business, right? Look at all the years that have gone into researching that, right? If you shared a link to your funnel to someone and said, hey, go learn marketing business, do you know how overwhelming that is?
Yeah. Oh, dude.
And it takes
Say
them
less.
away. So for me, I know what I am, I know what I'm about, I know where I'm going, and I don't deviate. And I'm just who I am, and people will show up appropriately at the right times. So
I love that primarily because I feel like everyone has a mask on when you're at like a networking event, or you're just trying to show
yeah,
up and be your
majority of
best
people,
self.
majority of people,
Yeah, yeah, and like that's kind of another reason why I wanted to do this whole podcast right here, right now. Like, how can we give someone that the truest, unfiltered
yeah,
like person
yeah,
possible, right? And
yeah,
you also helped me out with working with Blake, you know, and putting energy into places that either serve you or do not
mhm,
serve you I feel like
yeah,
is a constant battle day to
mhm,
day.
sure, yeah,
And when
definitely
you
is.
went into just not forcing it,
Mm,
like when you just surrender to all
yeah,
of that meaning just it could be, why isn't this person like why aren't we getting along? Why is it so hard to collaborate with them? That's me putting too much energy into it when the reality is they just may not be a good fit and you put expectations on them.
yes, yeah,
And we put
yeah,
expectations on people and we don't even mean to. It just happens. And so when we were in San Diego, what I loved we were at the table, you were like, it's just easier to get straight to the point on some things, man, because then I know where you stand and I know where this
yeah,
person
yeah,
stands,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I thought
yeah,
that was the most awesome thing, and that even in
yeah,
that setting, man. So like elaborating on just proximity, energy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just
That's a
being
good
your real
question
self, things will come together,
for sure.
And
Yeah,
so
but
you, yeah,
Blake Schofield. I can when I think of Blake Schofield, I smile. Just she's just different. She's just different. That's the only way I can put it. Uh, she's a special human being. That I've had the privilege to have a lot of intimate conversations with. A lot of vulnerability was shared. And I owe her so much for personal growth, business growth, marital growth. She brought a lot of things in perspective, and I one of the biggest things that I think about on a daily basis from her is expectations on people, right? Look at yourself honestly, right? And you know, I would always put expectations on someone else, inadvertently, or not. Um, and I have learned to show up in be present, show up in the right ways, um, and you don't gotta force things. You know, you don't need to force things. She really taught me how to really clear my windshield every single day. Right, get rid of the shit that is not serving me. Right, that's why one of the reasons I just made a social media post yesterday about it. When me and my wife moved down here to Charleston, I had so much shit that I was thinking about when I was back home in Buffalo that was not serving me at all. It was just taking up a lot of emotional energy.
You'd say your
And when I'm,
environment was kind of affecting
yeah,
you in that
oh,
perspective.
massive.
Not to cut
Oh,
you
for
off,
sure.
man, but that's kind of how it's coming across. Is like
Oh, for
you were
sure.
in an environment where you were kind of um, contained and needed
Yes.
to be released. I guess you could say.
Yeah,
You know,
I needed to go see it. I needed to change my environment to step into myself more. And when we moved here, the change that happened with myself, the change that happened with my wife was massive. And now I only focus on things that bring me energy. And sometimes, if I see myself, I gotta do, like, sure, we sometimes gotta do tasks that we don't want
of
to do. Sure,
course,
that's one thing.
yeah.
But like in terms of committing time and energy into something, if that doesn't match up with me and bring me good energy, I don't do it anymore, or at least I
Can you
try
give me an
not to.
example of that? Like that's a solid just give us an
Yeah,
example of what that could mean. Like you're doing something that maybe gives you energy, for example, and then
yeah,
another example could be something that you're putting too much energy in identifying it. I feel like a lot of times, and the reason for that is because we talked about how going through your day, just subconscious expectations you're putting on yourself or other
yeah,
people. I think a clear distinction of that could be even
yeah.
uh,
No, no,
I
that's a good question. So let's take you develop for an example. Okay, so you develop, we help non-traditional mental health coaches expand their businesses, and we basically offer consulting services. So one of the things that have always brought me energy is helping other people, talking, having conversations, dialogue, and bringing people together, right? I'm really good at matching the puzzle pieces up. That's my zone of genius. What doesn't bring me energy is building things. I don't want to go into your business and go build you a system. I don't want to build, I don't want to consult and then go and do things. I'm not in, I am an implementer from a managerial seat. I am not an implementer of a tool and execution standpoint. Okay. So that doesn't bring me energy. So for you develop, we are very new. We have a very small team. I have had times where I've had to force myself to not just go and do it just because it's convenient for the company, and to really protect my energy and say, you know what, this is not your zone of genius. Continue to push the envelope in the areas that you excel in and bring people in and around you that can do this. So that's one example. The second example is what I just said when it talks about leveling up your circle. For me, I'm always looking, because I'm a connector of people, and I'm always looking at how Kyle would mesh with so and so, right? I did that for you and Blake, right? You two
yes.
would be great
Oh,
together, right? So that's what I do, but I spend a lot of energy um, doing that for other people, and that's great. That's good energy, right? I feel the vibes. But on the flip side, when I recognize someone as like, hey, I want to go meet with this person, I want to get in proximity to this person, sometimes I will overexert myself and push myself to try to make that happen, and that's not good energy, because that's exhausting and it's feeling forced, and then I really step out of my inauthentic self, and that's, I don't like when I show up that way, right?
putting on
So
that mask, right?
yeah, put on, exactly, yeah, putting on the mask. And so for me, if I'm not putting on the mask, it's a freaking great day, great situation, great bit, whatever the case may be. And I do that with relationships, hardcore with relationships. I have a handful of acquaintances, right, or cordial. We hang out here and there, whatever. That's fine. But my circle, like my people, dude, I can count them on one hand, and it's people that give me energy. I give them energy. It's healthy, etc. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. It kind of goes back to like that. I mean, honestly, the rule that has been in front of us since you've even heard, maybe even heard the word entrepreneurship. It's like you are that person that you hang around. Your top five people. That's who
Yeah,
you are. It can show you your
yeah,
future, right? And so, just kind of going down, I guess, a couple other questions and things of that nature. You mentioned
yeah,
you developed Sales Academy, or not Sales Academy. You all pivoted right to
yeah.
more
Just you
so the
develop. Yeah,
performance perspective, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. Just you develop now.
yeah, yeah. So, with that being said, how are you all currently attracting, either A, talent? So that's a word for me. When I say marketing, because I want to talk a little bit about marketing
Sure,
and growth
sure,
a little bit.
sure.
It's like I think people disregard, okay, marketing for attracting talent, but then also marketing for attracting new clients to work with. What have
Clients.
you
Okay.
seen on both of those perspectives? What has been the most impactful for you? Because you were saying earlier, like you forced yourself to take a step back and not be an
Uh-huh.
implementer, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So finding talent to
Um,
do that for you, but then obviously you
yeah.
need customers, right?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing that I look for when I look for a person in my circle, okay? There's tools, there's tactics, there's principles, and then there's philosophy. Those are the layers, right? I look for people in my circle that are philosophy thinkers, right? That you don't need to give them they don't care about tools, they don't care about tactics, they care about the overarching impact and philosophy of whatever they're covering, right? Whatever they're talking about. Those are my people. So for me, I don't look at finding talent as a hiring task. I really don't. When I
Okay.
need if I need a Facebook guy, sure I can go to various sites and search for that person. But for me, I like to go through my network. I like to go and talk with people that have been there, done it, and understand what is it that I'm actually looking for. Because here's the thing: most entrepreneurs make this mistake, and I've made this mistake plenty of times. You say, "Hey, I need this person for this role," and a lot of times we go out and seek that individual. But what I've started to realize is if you start to talk with other people in your network, that are doing similar things to you and that give you, what I just said, your circle, and you bounce this idea off, say, hey, listen, I'm looking for this position to do this. What's your experience? And more times than not, I will actually learn that this role is different or should be tweaked than what I thought it should be. And then they always
Okay.
have a connection. They always have a connection for that new role that we just morphed based on our conversation. And I start
Yeah.
to validate that. So for me, finding a talent is me just leveraging my network. Who has been there, done it? Who has a reference? And then I go through the logistics, I guess, of hiring that way. In
I
terms of
love
finding what's that?
I was gonna say like the philosophy was I wanted to kind of zone in on that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I like that primarily because you don't put it in a box, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like you're not stuck in one area. I think like it helps you with being a lot more open, and that even helps me out, brother. Like if I'm being all the way transparent, we're gonna look for potentially a customer success manager in the future, and
Mm-hmm.
that in itself is definitely probably something more than what I think it is. And so from a philosophy perspective, it's good
Yeah.
to know,
Yeah,
So
you gotta be
yeah.
open minded, right? You gotta have the self awareness to understand I don't have all the answers, and go find someone that
Mm.
has a customer service or a client success person, and figure out what is it that they're doing. What are the things that I'm missing? And when you do that, you cut out the time where you were wrong, and you're not doing things to the best of your ability. So I always ask for guidance, seek counsel with people that have been there, done it, and that's where people's ego gets in the way, or maybe it's laziness. I don't know. Some people just think, hey, like this, I got the answer. I'm just gonna go do this. But man, I challenge every belief that I have. Like, okay, this is what I think. I'll talk to someone else about it. Hey, does this make sense? I just did this the other day with, I was talking with a prospective partner on a rev share deal for my marketing company, and I called Evan up. Evan's one of my best friends. Me and him we've been at it, obviously, but we've been at it,
Yes.
for a long time too. And me and him have had a lot of heart-to-heart conversations, but a lot of great conversations about business, marriage, faith, all of it. But I went to him and I said, hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking from the rev shares piece. Does this make sense? Is this attractive? Right. And so I had that dialogue. So that was confirmation with someone that's been there, done it, that does rev share deals consistently. He gave me feedback. So now I can go into it confidently without, saying, oh, you know what? I just typed this up and I sent it off to my client and you just live with the results. So it's just being smarter about how you go about things. But to answer your question, when it comes to how do I generate clients, well, I do it in two ways. One, I do it through my Impact Meets Innovation podcast. So I interview mental health, coaches, consultants, etc., on my podcast. So that's really my lead generation play. And I don't pitch them on the podcast or anything like this, but I get in proximity to them there. Then they join our community. That's the second step. So then we just provide value. This is a very unique business model, though, of what I'm doing with You Develop, because it's not the norm. We don't market the traditional ways. We don't run ads. It's about impact, and the right people. And this was a very hard shift for me. Initially, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we need 5 clients that pay us 10 grand a month. We need all this." No. Once I realized, like, hey, let's just be around the conversation and be around the right people, like you and I are doing right now.
Yes.
Business opportunities will lead to that, right? There's a good friend of mine, or at least I feel like we're getting a pretty good friendship. Cody Cottle out in
Yes, dude.
California, dude. That man, dude, that
Love
is
that
awesome.
man.
He just got married. Shout out to Cody. But me and him have had some really. I went to his church. I went to church with him, right? I literally I became a client of his. I used his team to run my social media for a while. Now we're talking about other things, and that's how people will kind of come into your circle. So for You Develop, we just focus on making the connections, having honest, vulnerable conversations, get people in your ecosystem where everyone wins and is open, and people are trying to develop themselves, and then over time, business opportunities will present itself. So it's a much slower play than past businesses I've been a part of, but again, when you say it gives you energy versus not, this business gives me a ton of energy, and I love the journey, man.
Brother, man, that is fire. Dude, I love it. I love it, dude. Oh my gosh, because your other event that you did in, South Charleston, we were huge on the whole idea of relationships in general. You kind
Yeah.
of gave me that idea to kind of, start this whole thing. Shout out to you, brother, man, while we're here. But I really spent some time appreciating simplifying this whole business thing. Like, guys, if you're listening, the reality is it is relationships with whether it is with your coach let's say you're in high school and you are, in a sport, you need to collaborate with your team, your coaches, the people that are supporting you on and off the field. And then with business, you have different levels. You have people that are working with you, next to you, people who are mentoring you, coaching you. Like
Yeah.
all of these, if it boils down to one word to help you grow, it's going to come down to relationships. Um, I want to digress a little bit, actually.
Okay. Let's
So,
digress.
did you, when you were like in high school ish, did you ever have a
Uh-huh.
thought of, you know, did you ever get like around friends that were kind of not necessarily for you, but they were just kind of like in your circle at that point in time? Like for example, for me, I got around some people that were, I would say, around the drug scene a lot, typically.
Okay.
But also they would also play sports as well. They had good potential, but they just didn't choose that path. And I found myself going through that route. Did you ever have any circle of influence like that before, like in the past? And there's
Yeah,
a there's a
man.
there's a point I'm going through, so bear with me.
Yeah. Man. I was um when I was 17, I went to rehab for alcohol. And so it kind of reared its head over a few months. I stole my grandma's car and went to a concert, got really drunk, drove the whole 9 yards. And then I realized, like, hey, I need help. So I started going to like rehab. Um, but for me, it started because I was just trying to fit in. That's how it started. I was
Yeah.
in a friend circle so my friend circle in high school, I was a little bit of an outcast even in my own friend circle in a way. I was kind of on the cusp. You know what I mean? Like I would
Like
I
you
would
knew
do
you were
some things with
different.
yeah, I knew I was different, right? So like my friend circle that I consider friends, they had their group of friends since middle school. So a lot of them went to the same middle school and then came to our private high school. So they had their group, and I was able to get in with that group because a lot of them were on the baseball team as I was. So
Okay.
like I kind of built that relationship. Yeah. So but yeah, and so they would drink and smoke weed and party, and I've never enjoyed smoking weed. I hate the feeling of being high. People do it all. Like people close to me smoke weed, and like I'm fine with it. But back then they were smoking weed, and I would get absolutely stoned, and I hated the feeling. So then
Yeah. No.
yeah, I was like, you guys can smoke. I'll just drink. And dude, my family has alcohol addiction heavily. We can drink, okay? And I don't mean to say this from you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
you're
when I
good.
started
You're good.
drinking, I was like, I feel great, dude. I feel great. I love drinking, but I was drinking every day. And then I started drinking when I wasn't around my friends, and I was drinking like in my bedroom, and it just got out of hand. But anyway, yes. So I have had friends and circles impact my behaviors that led to poor choices, I guess.
Yeah, so good to know that 1A, obviously I'm not alone because that's definitely happened to me in the past as well. Um, I just see kind of, as you're willing to improve yourself, I believe you also show up not just you're not just showing up for yourself and improving, but you're also simultaneously improving those relationships for people who are for you and wanting you to basically crush it in life. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
all, I mean, just as the simplicity of it all. So going back to like what we were talking about in terms of relationships and how simple it can be, whether again you're in sports, you're in business, you have a family, right? There are repercussions to the good things and the bad things that you can do.
Oh, for sure.
So that's kind of like what I'm navigating with you, my man. It's like we're all there. So I guess what was I'm kind of going into a little bit of skill development, a little bit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
networking, connecting the dots, right? That is something that you absolutely love. Would you say that was your best skill set? And the second
Mm,
question is, what was your first skill set that you learned for business?
mm. Wow. Um, Great question. So
Curveball, right?
I'll start with I'll actually answer in reverse. Okay.
Okay,
So
okay, great.
the first skill I learned in business was being able to talk with people and sell. If you can't sell, you don't have a business. And so I felt comfortable talking to people. So sales became really easy. I practiced it and I got good at it. And I still sell to this day for various different reasons. But in terms of like my best skill set, in business as a whole, is connecting people. Is connection with people. I just I'm really good at piecing people together, bringing people together for various, tasks, projects, businesses, depending on the scope. Um, and then for me is I have a unique, I think, a unique ability to think like a visionary, think like the business owner, but also be nearsighted enough that I can see the operation side of things.
Okay.
So I usually don't get in. I hardly ever get into a situation where I see something playing out this way. I develop for this, and I'm wrong. Like and not saying I'm never wrong. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when I match up a thought to a vision, and then I have to execute that vision, usually they're pretty in line. So for me, that helps me on a micro scale and a macro scale. Um, so I don't
Did you
know,
ever
but
take the Colby test by chance? Like, did you ever look into that?
yeah, I've taken the COVID test. I actually forgot what my numbers are. Uh,
I
I
Yeah,
took it with
like
Blake. I took it with Blake, I think.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That was pretty cool. So like, guys, whoever's again listening, like the Colby test is something not
Great
based
test. Great
on
test.
how smart you are. It's more along the lines of how do you function for you to thrive. So that way you are more
Yeah.
in aligned with yourself. And we all still have stress and things of that nature, but in various different ways. But
Yeah.
like how can you navigate where your zones of geniuses are per what Chris is talking about? What I
Yeah.
find ironic is I'll just create a system and then I'll try and do different things and then I'll go in and fix it kind of as I go. I'm not too
Uh-huh.
worried on the perfection side of things, but I'm also on that visionary perspective as well. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, kind of a little bit of balance on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny
So
because, since working with Doug, so now that I'm in the operations role,
yeah.
me and Doug talk every day, right? About various items. And I think the reason why I've been able to, I think, excel and to grow the company in my role is because I think like him in a lot of ways, but I can also think like the the working bees too, right?
Yes.
I can think like that, like the implementers, the executors, right? I can think like them as well. So I really, I don't know, man. I think working with Doug has been really good for me from a leadership standpoint. Working with high level people like yourself and Evan, it's gave me a greater appreciation because the team we have isn't a team many organizations have, which is unique, right? How many organizations do you know that their entire executive team is also business owners? It's pretty wild, right? So,
Insane.
um, you know, it's been a cool experience. But yeah, man, it's all about people. Um, it's all about connecting. I don't really worry too much about the tools and tactics all that much. Those
The bag,
change.
the bag, right? Throw across your
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Everyone has a thing, right?
yeah, and tools and tactics, they friggin' change as much as I change my underwear. So to me, I don't get in the ball game of worrying about the tools. I get in the ball game of worrying about the processes and the philosophy behind why we're doing something. And I think that comes down to the people you're around.
I see you have a Steve Jobs
I
in
do.
your background, dude. Yes, think different. So I love his innovations and everything that he's done. What's like the biggest thing that kind of has you going with that when you think? Because I'm thinking about also, what like I forget where I'm trying to go here with this, but overall, it's just how can you take a philosophy and place it in all areas of your life. And I think thinking different and like we said earlier about work and life balance and things of that nature, just it's all life and it's not all about the tactics or things in that nature. So I'm just kind of pairing everything to kind of together as a holistic approach,
Yeah.
right? What is your favorite philosophy is kind of where I'm trying to go.
Well,
I see
actually,
what's tough.
my favorite philosophy, that's a loaded freaking
Yeah, it's a
question,
freaking
but
long question,
I'll
but
I'll keep it
it's
with the
all good.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I think Steve Jobs, people judged him and whatnot, but that man made an impact. And I think one of his best quotes, I think it's like, "We're here to put a dent in the universe. Otherwise, why the hell are we even here?" Something like that, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
my
yeah. That's
philosophy.
good.
That's my
That's good.
philosophy. Like, if I'm here, I want to squeeze as much out of this life as possible, and I want to impact as many people as I possibly can. And for me to do that, I have to have a continuous pursuit of growth. When I stop growing, I become complacent, and I'd rather die if that was the case. So for me, I am just hungry for growth. Growth physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. I'm not
Let's
gonna win
go.
every day. I'm not
Yes,
gonna
dude.
some days I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail miserably. But and this is a thing that ties into business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People in business associate a tangible result, a tangible end goal, right? They an arbitrary timeline or an
Very
arbitrary goal to an
transactional.
arbitrary timeline, right? What I do now is I am willing to play the long game. I tell everyone I coach, I'm not the best marketer, not the best media buyer, I'm not the best salesperson, but what I can hang my hat on is that I will play the game longer than you will. And that's my mentality. So
And you're
I
willing to
just
do the
play.
boring things, man.
Yeah,
That's something you're willing to do.
yes, I
Like,
love. I'll do the boring things every
yeah.
day. I don't need to find the sexy new toy. Alex Hormozy talks about the lady in the red dress a lot.
Yes,
from the
yes, yes. Matrix.
from the Matrix, right? It's like so many people see the lady in the red dress and they look, dude, I can do the same freaking thing day in and day out with my operation longer than most. And that's what's allowed me to have some success, which I don't really like the word success. I really like high performing better. But high performing people they have the ability to play the long game, And so back to the philosophy and Steve Jobs, it's like when I'm in this earth, I want to make an impact. I want to make a dent on this world. And for me to do that, I have to keep evolving, right? I'm a 29-year-old that's had peanuts of success in the grand scheme of my life. I need to keep ascending, and the only way I do that is to learn more, skills, be more valuable, and meet more and connect with more people. And the only way for me to do that is I need to be better spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So that's like that's my overarching philosophy on
No,
life.
that I
Life in
love
general.
that because literally like going from being in high school, going through rehab, all the way to the stepping stone of where you came to where you are now, there's been so many beliefs that you've overcame simultaneously. Like I don't want to discount that neither. As you're willing to do the boring stuff, as you're trying to avoid the woman in the red dress. Like you even said earlier, like as you're uh, seeing people in, let's say, your network, and you want to go to this person, that person, you deviate from that thing. That deviation is that girl in the red dress, just for context for anyone.
From the
And
Matrix, the movie The
yes,
Matrix.
yes, yes, man, and that's
Yes.
it. That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
And
And
I saw it. Sorry to interrupt. I'll
no,
allow you
you're
to
good.
finish. But when
You're
I
good. You're
heard
good.
Alex Hormozy on that podcast say that, I was like, oh my God, it clicked so much for me, just that one statement. I don't listen to Alex a ton, but some of the stuff I see, and that quote, anytime it comes back up in his video of him talking about, deviating from the main thing, basically, man, it's such a powerful statement, and a lot of people can comprehend what that is. But anyway, continue.
Well, he just makes things super simple.
Yeah.
Like literally, you see that book in my background. You see the $100 million leads, and he has also $100 million offers. He just makes it dumb simple.
Dumbs it down.
Yeah,
And
and sometimes it's all we need. It's
that's
just
all
simply
you
like, how
need.
can I get more business? What are your relationships looking like? But how you do one
Yeah.
thing is how you do everything. So also, what is your marriage looking like? Where's your friend circle looking like? But also your relationships in your business. And
Yeah, for sure.
so to kind of come to I guess an ending of this, what are some things you would want to pass down to, you know, people maybe in high school, upcoming entrepreneurs, athletes, maybe that specifically as they're kind of coming up? What would be like the
About anything?
something? It could be anything you'd like within 2 to 3 sentences.
Yeah, yeah. How much time do I got?
I know, right?
Yeah, man. I would say for a kid coming up, no matter what the temptations are, stay true to who you are, and be open minded that you haven't figured it all out, and have a growth mindset, have a growth approach. If you have that, and you're not obsessed, and you don't allow your ego to get in the way of who you think you are, or who you want to be, and don't allow yourself to be influenced by other people, you'll have a great life. And it really, at the end of the day, who you are as a 15, 18, 22-year-old, 24-year-old, 25-year-old, who you are then will not be who you are in the future. So don't get hung up on the small things. Don't get hung up on the fact that this girl left you. Don't get hung up on the fact that you're at you're drinking all the time. Don't get hung up on stuff like this. Don't get hung up on the fact of like, oh, you just lost your job. Don't get hung up on the fact that you're broke, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the person that you're gonna be when you're living, when you're truly stepping into your own, and just be you. Be your unauthentic. I'm sorry, your unapologetic, authentic self. And if you do that, life will come back to you. That's my message.
I love it. I love it,
But
brother.
I
It's
could
so
talk
good.
hours, man, about the youth, man. I can. There's so many lessons that I've learned on this journey the past 6 years. Man,
God bless,
What?
right? Like how
Yeah,
many there's so many
yeah,
different stepping stones to it. So guys,
yeah.
Chris has an amazing podcast, and where can they find, you on the socials? Are you like what would be the
Yeah,
best
so
find you?
yeah, appreciate that, Kyle. Yeah, so you guys can go find me on Instagram, the underscore Chris Newman. A link to my podcast is there, along with my business page. You can learn a little bit about what You Develop does and how we're making an impact in this world. So yeah,
I'll be sure to put some links in there for you guys. Chris, you're the man, the myth, the legend. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for hopping
nice.
on. And guys, do not forget to be true you and keep it unfiltered, because things will come to you as you step into your purpose. See you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, Kai. Talk to you later.
See.